What's going on, everybody? It is your boy Zamboni, and I am an herbalist and astrologer. It is time to talk about the astrology of the week ahead. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for sending me a tip via Venmo, Cash App, PayPal. That shit is super, super helpful. I really appreciate it. You really make this whole thing possible. Wouldn't be possible without y'all sending tips. Thank you so much. Um, let's talk about the astrology of the week ahead. So, this week is last week of March, first beginning little bit of April here. We are in some of the most difficult weather of the year. So very first thing that's going to happen this week is we got Venus finally catching up to a conjunction with Saturn. Now, I feel like this Venus conjunct Saturn we've been kind of waiting on this for months, since like November, from when Venus moved into Capricorn and then got confused and had to move back and go through all this whole situation and everything. Capricorn is a Saturn ruled sign. And so we've been sort of like doing the Venus Saturn stuff throughout this whole period. We can think about the houses in your chart that Venus rules, as well as the houses that Saturn rules. And we can maybe see some interaction between those places. And it's likely to be more fun for Saturn than it is for Venus. For Venus, this is not very much fun. Usually Venus having to deal with Saturn is like Venus being all pleasurable and fun and enjoyable, and Saturn showing up with some kind of limitations or something like that. Now, the other way, Saturn getting some Venus, that's usually Saturn sort of like thinking organizationally or thinking about contracts or agreements or something like this, you know, the rules of the affair, while Venus is like, oh, but like we can work together and this can be mutually beneficial or something like this, right? And so operating from that Saturn sphere is going to be a much more effective way to get constructive outcomes out of that Venus Saturn situation, rather than approaching it from Venus and being like, oh, but isn't it going to be so delicious, and getting a hard no on that. Especially since that Saturn is very uncomfortable with Mars there. Mars in Aquarius is not making that Saturn feel good. You know, it's maybe feeling a little urgent. It's feeling like whatever Saturn has been trying to do is like the clock is ticking on it, and there's something that's like really important and needs to be done. Mars is not going to quite catch up to that conjunction this week, but very close. And so that Mars Saturn is it's going to be loud as shit this week. So what's going to happen early is Venus is going to conjoin Saturn, and then going to move past that. And so while we're still going to have Venus in Aquarius throughout this time, it's going to be it's not going to be building anymore after that first bit early on in the week. Mars Saturn is still going to continue to build. That is very important because we also have the new moon in Aries this week. Aries is a sign that's ruled by Mars, and so whatever's going on with Mars is a big deal relative to what's going on in the new moon. We can think about the new moon as being a moment of it's funny, sembrando is the word that came into my mind, of like planting a seed. Like getting something started. And usually at the new moon, we can think about the new moon as being the dark moon, right? It's not the time when the shoots come up, right? This is the time of planting of the seed in the dirt, and then it's dark and quiet for a little while, and then takes about a year for the whole thing to sort of come out and do the thing, right? There'll be a full moon in Aries when the sun is in Libra, and that'll be kind of the culmination of this cycle, and then we'll come around and start it over again back next year when the sun moves into Aries and we have another new moon in Aries. That's the cycle that we're looking at here, right? So that's always the case with new moon. New moon in Aries is ruled by Mars. So what's going on with Mars? Well, Mars is closely conjunct Saturn. This looks very, this is gas and brakes at the same time. It's frustrating. It's potentially ragey. It is uncomfortable and like pushy in its way. The way that I've been thinking about this is like, especially if we're looking at a year-long cycle here, then like this Mars-Saturn situation looks like it wants to happen for a long time. So whenever we're dealing with Mars stuff, and also Aries especially, I find that Aries is super good on the front end, strong like out the gate, and then gets tired and and burnt out in a fairly short period of time. Aries, we can think about Aries as being like the match flame, right? You like strike the match and then it burns super brightly for a moment and then fizzles out, right? So when I'm thinking about this new moon and seeing that Mars Saturn there and thinking about dealing with that for a year, then like pacing yourself on whatever gets planted this week is going to be paramount. This is going to be a super big deal. Very important to take some time. There's my monthly forecast is about to come out, and in it, I said something to the effect of like aggressively schedule some rest during this time, during this year-long cycle. Like, and so that's pretty Mars Saturn right there, right? Like Saturn wants to be inactive or to rest, to not move. Saturn's the one that will tell you no, and then Mars will be aggressive, right? And we'll like cut things out, and like I don't care what you think about it, right? So aggressively scheduling some rest might be a good way to sort of think with this weather that's going to be in effect for such a long period of time. It's also a good idea to remember to actually rest when you have scheduled your rest. Don't sit there and don't be like me. Don't schedule your time out to rest and then doom scroll throughout that whole shit. Don't do that. It's not worth it. It's not making you better. Trust me on that. So that's where, this new moon that we've got going on here, it doesn't look like fun. We are still not to the fun part yet. We're gonna there's fun on the way. Next week, Venus is gonna move into Pisces. And while I don't expect that to like change the whole world and everything is made of ice cream now or something like this, I do expect some ice cream to show up. It might be war and ice cream, but we'll take both rather than just the former, right? So we're on the way there. This week is not that week. We still got now there's some good stuff in the sky here, right? We've got the sun in Aries. The sun in Aries is super strong and prominent. Oh, the other thing that's going to be happening is we've got Mercury in Aries as well. And so Mercury is moving super quick at this point and is actually going to come up and hit that cazimi with, it's going to conjoin the sun. It's going to catch up to the sun in Aries on the same day as the new moon. And so this new moon is likely to have a mercurial, Mercury cazimi is often like thought of as, like a special message comes through that Mercury is very close to the sun for a lot of times. And so that can be like a little, it's difficult to see Mercury, and it's difficult to sort of like get some of that Mercury stuff out of that because the sun is so overpowering. But then there's this moment when you like get into the heart of the sun. That's what cazimi means, right? Think about corazon. It's like in that cazimi moment, it's right in the middle. And in that moment, we can get a blast of some kind of message can come through. There can be some kind of clarity or something like this. Now, this is happening at the same time in the same degree as the new moon in Aries. We can think about, well, Mars is going to be closely conjunct Saturn, I think within 1 degree, 2 degrees, something like this at that time. So we would expect that message to come through, right? We expect the Mars-Saturn message to come through. So how are we going to be with that and deal with that? So there are 2 ways that I've been thinking about this, right? Because I, like everyone else, am super burnt out. I'm getting hella tired here. I know, I've got some friends who are like fairly prominent in astrology or whatever, and everybody I know is like this close to quitting. Like, fuck this, myself included. It's very difficult, and everybody is like feeling that, right? And so, on the one hand, there's aggressively schedule some rest and actually do some resting. On the other hand, there's like, can you make it another week and a half? Can you just keep going? Can you just keep pushing that long and then maybe schedule some rest for when Venus and Jupiter are together and then like eat some ice cream during that time? It's probably to my mind, it's a both and affair. You know what I mean? I'm gonna need some rest from time to time, and also like I just know my style. This is one of the things that I like spend a lot of time with clients whenever we do natal readings. Then it's like, how can I best do my thing, you know? And so what I know about myself is I have Mars in Aries, right? That's how I know all of this about like match flames and stuff like this, right? I burn out. That I'm super strong out the gate. You always see me posting at like 8 o'clock in the morning or something like that, right? I'm good at 8 o'clock in the morning. By the time 1 o'clock p.m. rolls around, like I'm kind of done, right? I need a nap at this point. So I know my style. I know that I can go really hard for a minute and then rest and then get up and go really hard again, right? Whatever your style is, however you can find your rhythm so as to best optimize your own performance. Maybe you're one of these people who does really great by giving 85% all day long, right? You don't ever like hit that 100% where you're like going. That's what I do. I go super hard until I burn out and drop, right? Some folks, that's not the move. Some folks will prefer to go at 85 all day and can sort of maintain that. Whatever it is, there are many more than just two ways of approaching things, but finding that rhythm and finding what's good for you and being able to, because there's a rhythm of action versus inaction. There's a rhythm of activity versus rest, right? No matter what happens, that's the day night, that's the yang yin situation, right? We're going to do that no matter what. This week, it's a lot going on. There's a lot of pressure on. And so this week, if you haven't already figured out what your rhythm is, this week is likely to teach you what your rhythm is. And it's going to be good to sort of feel into, this week is going to give you some ways to think with the whole year. You know, we've got this whole new moon that's going to happen for a year, but between now and Aries season next year. So like, how are you going to manage that and pace yourself throughout this time? Because it's a long road, and there's some nice Jupiter that's coming up and some nice benefics and some stuff, right? But that's not all that there is. And there's a lot of malefic stuff going on. So how can we pace ourselves, drink of the nourishment that Jupiter and our benefics can provide when they can provide those? But more importantly, how are we going to maintain throughout this whole time period? It's an open question. We'll see. Thank y'all for being here. I'll see you next week.